Board business meeting to order. And I'll ask our treasurer to call the roll.
President Baker.
Present.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Vice President Cole.
Present.
Ms. Gibbs.
Here.
Ms. Hudson. Mr. Peretti.
Here.
Ms. Reyes.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. And I'd like to call on Nurse Kate King to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you don't mind. Welcome. Nice to see you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome and thank you for joining us this evening. I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving and was able to relax and recharge with family and friends. Board Member Hudson is out of town on business this evening and won't be with us. Director Johnson is also unable to join us tonight. We have a relatively short agenda, so we hope to not keep you for very long this evening. And so let's get right to it. So I'll read through briefly our agenda, and then we'll move to adopt it. So we have actually no public comment this evening. We'll then hear from our direct reports. We will then consider our consent agenda. We will then have announcements and committee reports. We will then recess into executive session, and that'll be it this evening. So having said that, is there a motion that we adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
President Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Vice President Cole.
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs.
Yes.
Mr. Peretti.
Yes.
Ms. Reyes.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Let's move directly into executive reports. Mr. Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Baker, Vice President Cole, members of the board. Tonight, my comments are going to focus on just one topic that I know has weighed on the minds of many of you on this board, as it has weighed heavily on mine and certainly my colleagues. Yesterday afternoon, we learned that this city experienced its 124th and 125th homicides of the year, making 2017 the second deadliest year in recent history. Number 124, we learned, was 17-year-old Quentin Smith, one of our 10th graders at West High School. And number 123 from the day before, in a separate incident, was 28-year-old Dominic Williams, one of our bus drivers serving students at Lyndon McKinley and Valley Forge. Both of these were the victims of gun violence. Now, at the beginning of this calendar year, this board made a pretty bold statement about gun violence and the need for everyone in this community, everyone, to take a stand. But I fear not enough people listened. This board hosted a series of provocative town hall-style safety meetings designed to bring citywide attention to the district's own safety and security efforts, as well as the need for additional safety resources and support from within our communities. We launched a collaborative effort with the city's Department of Recreation and Parks to highlight the free and engaging safe activities for students during the long winter, spring, and summer breaks. We sent home with every student a message enlisting the help of parents, guardians, grandparents, and families to further identify those partners, whether they be public, private, or nonprofit, partners who can lift up and watch out for our students when they are no longer in our care at the end of the day and they are in their own neighborhoods. But again, I fear not enough people listen. Just last month, Dr. Stanford and I met with members of the BREAD organization who have expressed an interest in taking a more active role to protect our students. We shared with them a mountain of data showing that the number of disciplinary incidents in our schools are down. In fact, in just level 1 categories of misbehavior, such as classroom disruptions and profanity, we're down by 20%. I went on to explain how we're integrating new pathways for addressing in-school and out-of-school suspensions and expulsions, with a greater emphasis on keeping students in an education environment, especially our younger students, instead of outplacements or having them sit at home. And those numbers are improving as well, with an overall 35% reduction in our outplacements this year when compared with the same time frame both last year and the year previously. In fact, our numbers show a 48% reduction in outplacements at the middle school level, a 39% reduction in our elementary schools, and a 21% overall drop in our high schools. And there are a handful of schools that really stand out. Lyndon McKinley STEM Academy has seen a 57% decrease. Buckeye Middle School has a 61% decrease. Champion and Highland both are down by 81%, and Hamilton STEM is down an amazing 89%. How? Well, we explained, just as national experts in the field have pointed out, that our most successful buildings are taking true multidisciplinary and multivariate approaches, such as trauma-informed practices, or combining those practices with restorative justice. The experts also remind us that adverse childhood experiences are the single greatest unaddressed public health threat facing our nation today, according to the American Medical Association. And our children are especially sensitive to the repeated stress activation because their brains and their bodies are still developing. High doses of adversity in children not only affect brain structure and function, it affects their developing immune system, their developing hormonal systems, and even the way DNA is read. With all of our data and that national study in front of BRED, I fear still not enough people are listening, because the focus is still on what can be done in the school and to our students. Well, even last night, as the Columbus City Council paused a moment to present a resolution for my service as superintendent, the focus was still on this notion that the fate of our city's children are the school's responsibility. And I reminded them, we as a community need to come to the realization that the best way to help our students is to help their families. It's going to take lots of tough conversations, innovative new thoughts and breaks from the past, and a resilience against the noise and the clutter of those who simply want to point to and talk about the problems instead of taking action. But if we want our young students to be safe, if we want them to learn and grow, if we want them to stay on pathways toward good jobs and successful lives, then we must start by addressing the challenges their families are facing at home and in their neighborhoods right now. So I urged City Council that as they look to make future investments or future pronouncements about our mission of education, to not forget about the families. And I hope people start listening. I certainly believe the next superintendent of this district will need a voice that continues to carry this message, your message, that no one can do it alone. Those past excuses, which said children are the school's responsibility, leave it to them, must be replaced by local businesses and national organizations, neighborhood groups, and faith-based volunteers, elected leaders, and every member of this great metropolitan city by asking, how can we all help all families and create for them true pathways out of poverty? Tonight as a district, we are embracing the families of Quentin Smith and Dominic Williams, and so many others within our district who've been impacted by violence, because the truth is we have all been impacted, and it will take all of us to end it. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Losing members of our district family is always difficult, so we will continue to focus on this issue, and we appreciate your leadership and look forward to the leadership of Dr. Stanford and others throughout the district. Are there any questions for the superintendent? Board members?
Okay.
Board member Gibbs?
So thank you, Dr. Good, for those comments. And I think we'd be remiss not to say as a board, we share in the frustration, the sadness, and the perplexity around this issue. And we've had task force and meetings and more reports, yet and still we're at 125, and I have not watched the news today. Disproportionately, school districts take the blame when it happens around young people. But I just want to say we sell lunch, we sell school supplies, we sell tons of things in schools. We do not sell weapons. We do not provide them to students. We do not give them ammo. We don't have a hunting class. So these weapons are coming and they're getting in the hands of our young people, very young. And when we say, you know, we need some measures, the fact that people from the community even push back is challenging. So do you have, or have you heard in any of your recent discussions, any, I don't want to say any ideas, but have you heard any ideas that sound like they might work? Because what we're doing now is not working, but we still have to get to December 31, and I doubt if we stay at 125. And so Have you heard any collaborations, or have they asked us as a board, as a district, to do anything that we should be considering?
So President Baker, to Board Member Gibbs, in fact, we have heard, and all of us have been participants in multiple forums where we ask the needs of our neighborhood families, in particularly the school-age children in those neighborhoods. And most of what those students have asked for are activities, structured, supervised activities that are accessible after school and on weekends. So to the extent that some of those have been provided last year during those long winter and spring breaks, we saw a decline in the number of incidents, but it isn't pervasive, and it certainly hasn't scaled. And in fact, it hasn't even been sustained. Where we felt there were agreements in place that some of our nonprofit partners and even civic organizations were going to be providing those throughout the school year. Due to changes in policy or mission or personnel, those things didn't materialize. And so we continue to have that dialogue, but we also know that in urban settings, particularly economically disadvantaged urban settings, the greatest consistency is inconsistency. And so our children are asking for consistent opportunities after school to be engaged in pro-social activities. And where those occur, we see students making different choices and even helping to take some of that good decision-making back into the home. So when I have an incident report that indicates an 8-year-old for a second time has a loaded revolver in their backpack, and the parent comes in and says, well, I thought I hid that better. You know, the students can begin to help educate their parents and change the climate in which they're raised. So we do have to have those sorts of adult mentors, and those mentors come in the forms, again, of those supervised structured activities, and that's what our students ask for over and over again.
Thank you. And just one point you made, and I don't want to hammer it home nor debate it, but we bring together a lot of people and they come up with great ideas, and we talk about the challenges of young people, and especially those in poverty. I grew up poor. I grew up in Brittany Hills. I didn't take a gun to school. So that is not always just it. So I'm hoping all of the partners continue to come to the table, and maybe we need new people to be at the table to bring some new ideas and to make sure mental health and family stability has seats at the table, and that maybe we need more of the community there and not the quote-unquote leaders, so that it can be an authentic, community-driven solution that comes from the people and they feel like they own it, as opposed to us putting it on there. I mean, it's difficult and we can't solve it at this table, but I think we really want the community to know that in addition to trying to create a world-class education and graduate the best students, this in fact is at our doorstep, and we can't ignore it if we want our children to remain safe on their way to school, while they're at school, and in the weekend and the time we wait for them to come back.
To follow up, I'd certainly agree with that. And please make no mistake, it is not a cause-effect, economic disadvantage or living in an urban center. It's a strong correlation, which makes it a social policy issue, not something that's endemic. And so we need to be clear about that as well. We also need to be clear that our partners need to make commitments and to be able to deliver on those commitments. So indicating you're going to be there for the full year to provide mentorship to our students or provide a walking school bus home, and you only show up on the first day of school when the cameras are present to help clap the students in, and we don't see you again the rest of those 9 months, that's not okay. And it only reinforces this abandonment and this hands-off perspective that students seem to share. And they're very sensitive to that. In fact, it's very difficult to get our students at this point to even agree to come to forums because they feel it's a lot of talk and no action. And so I think your point, and I don't speak on behalf of the students certainly, but they're certainly in my ear enough, and I think that I understand what they're feeling.
Thank you. Mr. Peretti?
I just want to take this opportunity just to make a comment. And, you know, Dr. Good, our staff, our community, you know, our school district has, you know, we have always tried to find solutions, always tried to be innovative, but there are a lot of financial underpinnings to a lot of these things. We saw after school net programs being slashed. We see changes in the state budget constantly. When we're trying to deliver education, you can't be innovative when you don't have, when you continue to be cut, when you're continuing to try to provide economic or educational opportunities to our kids, and then for us to have an unstable funding formula in an unstable way that we bring in resources, it makes doing these things tough, which makes it all more important and the right thing to do to have everyone at the table for sustainable programs. You know, I don't want to let the people that make those decisions for us off the hook in the legislature. And we need to make sure that they understand that, you know, their decisions that they make, those economic decisions have very, very big effects on this district. And we saw it with the $86 million hit that we took from the state funding formula. That has consequences, period. It has consequences. Things cost money when we do them internally or externally. And when we want to be innovative, if we can't do the basic things because we keep on getting cut, it's going to be hard to be innovative. So I just want to urge people just to keep paying attention to this issue. You know, we are, you know, sometimes the messenger when it comes to finances, and, you know, we ask people for property tax levies, and then we ask for an allowance from the state. It's the most unstable way to provide education, period. And I want to make sure that people, you know, remember that. I will be hammering that home as much as I can. We need to be at the State House, and we need to make sure that people understand that those economic decisions that they make for us, whether it's just in the finance area, there are many other decisions that are made there that affect us as well, that our voices are heard there, and that the public understands that we're not just deciding to either to allocate certain resources or not. There's a reason behind it, and it's because of a very unstable formula. It's due to I couldn't imagine any other enterprise, private or public, that would have to be reliant on the funding like we are and try to have consistent results year to year. So it's just my piece. It's just something that I've noticed as being a board member of the 4 years working at the State House. It's a worry of mine constantly. It's a worry of mine when we have new superintendents, when we get new board members. Sometimes it's like hitting the reset button with a lot of things in school districts. So I just want to keep that in mind for people and you know, come down to the State House, get a hold of us, and we can all go down together. They need to hear from us on those sort of issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peretti. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, President Baker. To Board Member Peretti, I would agree, and I know we've all been partners and had these conversations. I also think we need to expand that understanding beyond legislators that are in the State House to also understand that there are individuals that are elected to city council positions, to county commissioner positions. And when we're looking at increasing numbers of tax abatements that are brought forward for the board's consideration, it's interesting to me that yes, we're supportive of development, but developers also need to have accountability for improving the quality of life in the neighborhoods where they're building, and even in the neighborhoods where they're not building. So I think we would have a very different conversation if a business actually slapped their logo on a building in a neighborhood, a poor performing school. And suddenly maybe we would see more of an investment in ensuring that those children are getting those internships and them becoming the employees of choice for those businesses in the future. So as we go down the path and talk about future abatements and enhanced abatements, even for those that would come forward, I think the board's in an enviable position to really leverage and say, all right, are you truly going to invest in our neighborhoods, or are you going to take advantage of a tax abatement so that you can create jobs for individuals that don't live in our school system? And so I think there are many ways that we're going to need to begin to flex our muscle a little bit in those conversations. And the good news is I think there's receptivity from other elected officials to having that conversation and holding new developers accountable for, again, maybe not solving poverty, but presenting pathways to prosperity, because poverty and prosperity are not dichotomous. You can have both. And so they can have a large role in ensuring that those neighborhoods are quality places to live and people are getting those jobs. So it's not just the State House.
Thank you. Board Member Brown?
Yes. Dan, I just want to thank you for sharing your views on these couple of subjects. They're very important. They're going to be important for us going forward. They're items that we need to talk with each other and have some discussion and work on these things, both for the next 3 weeks while you're here with us and continue to share your views, but also we need to do that with John and, you know, well beyond that. These need to be among our highest priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. If there are no other comments on the superintendent's report, thank you, Mr. Superintendent. And let's then move on to our internal auditor. Madam Internal Auditor, have you anything to share with the board this evening?
Thank you, President Baker, Vice President Cole, members of the board. I don't have a report, but I would like to just state that Audit and Accountability is meeting this Monday at 3:30 in the Cabinet Room. And actually, that was an excellent report by the superintendent. Some things that were said really touched my heart, and I just appreciate the discussion that we just had.
Thank you. And Mr. Treasurer, then the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just an announcement that we have a Finance and Appropriations Committee meeting Thursday, the 14th, here in the Assembly Room at 4 p.m. Typical agenda, but I think there'll be some other items on there that will be worth listening into if anybody would like to attend. That's it.
Any questions for the treasurer? All right. Thank you all for that discussion and those reports. And I think that it's appropriate to just have a brief moment of silence for those members of our family that we have lost. Thank you very much. Let's move on to contemplating our consent agenda this evening. Is there a motion that we adopt our consent agenda as presented?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Board members, are there questions or comments on any piece of legislation? Mr. Peretti?
I just want to point out the 3 properties that we'll be selling and just keep into our promises that we made to the community, that we would shed, look underneath every rock and stone for resources so we could fund deferred maintenance and the over $400 million that was in this district of things that need to be fixed. And although we were able to ask for some money from the public, there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. And again, not to be the wet towel, but all these things cost money. And when we go to the levy and we ask for things, I wanted to make sure that, you know, we just keep on top of this and let the public know that we're doing everything that we can. And I'm just very pleased to see Fifth Avenue Mohawk, the old Mohawk, and Manacor being sold. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Board members, Mr. Vice President?
I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the Columbus Rotary for being a constant partner of ours throughout the years consistently. They gave us very graciously a $2,500 donation. I want to make sure that we give them high thanks and praise for their hard work and their commitment and relationship with us and our children.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other board members? Ms. Gibbs?
Yes. And to Dr. Good's point about leveraging better agreements, we are going to purchase our reading kiosks. That was a part of a deal. Yes, I see. So happy, right? The whole curriculum team back here beaming. And making the best of a deal and being able to get more than just a handshake out of it. We'll have some new reading kiosks that will go in across the district, and it will increase the literacy and opportunities for some of our young writers to have their works published and some of our community writers to have their work published. So while the deal may have been difficult on just numbers alone, we were able to provide far more to our students by really leveraging that ask. So thank you for that, and the cost of $54,000 that will go to really help our students read.
Thank you, Board Member Gibbs. Anything else? Just want to point out, remind you that we are voting to hold our organizational meeting on Tuesday, January 9th. So not the first Tuesday in January, but the second, and we'll meet at 5 o'clock. If there are no other questions or comments, Board Member Gibbs?
And if on the organizational meeting on the 9th, will we then have our regular board meeting on the 3rd Tuesday in January as well? Are we going to do back-to-back?
I think that's the plan. We can discuss that at the organizational meeting, yes. Thank you for asking. Yes, Board Member Reyes?
Mr. Baker, I want to make sure that, since we've highlighted donations, we also need to highlight, I guess, a point of district success and resiliency for the graduation resolution to award a diploma to a Mr. Damian Christopher Pendleton, awarding him his high school diploma. So making sure that just reminding our students, don't give up. We will
continue to join you in your path to education. So congratulations to Mr. Pendleton for receiving their high school diploma.
Thank you for pointing that out. All right, so, yes, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, President Baker. To Board Member Reyes, absolutely, the notion that people complete these degrees in 4 years is our generation's notion. We actually have 22 students that have completed the requirements for graduation already that may have been a part of a former class. And it's interesting when we went to visit them using the new pathway to graduation, earning 18 points a variety of ways, earning industry credentials so that they're ready to secure a job immediately. We already have 22 that are ready to receive their diploma and another 20 that are taking the work skills test or work keys skills test. And so we could potentially have 42 individuals. And the one request they had of me that they asked me to pass on to the board was, could they have a ceremony before the end of the year when they're ready, because they would like to get started and they need their diploma oftentimes to begin those careers. So I said, I can't imagine this board would not honor that. We would just have to find a date. So not that you need to take a vote or anything, but I would imagine you'd be receptive to that. It's very exciting that there are so many pathways now and children are experiencing success at different points in their careers, their education careers.
I don't see any objections, so let's make it happen. All right, very good. If there are no other comments on the consent agenda, Mr. Treasurer?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes, except 11.2, which I abstain.
Mr. Peretti?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you very much. Let's move on then to announcements, and we are going to have our annual committee reports at this time, and so they are listed in your agenda in no particular order. The first one listed is public engagement, at least on my agenda. Board Member Reyes, would you like to present your report?
Thank you, President Baker. So committee members, Coach Sat Sullinger, the amazing T Street, with assistance from our administration of Scott Varner and Alicia Gillison. So the Public Engagement Committee continues to assist the district's strategic communication and outreach efforts to make sure our community hears more about the achievements of our students and accomplishments of our district. Bolstered by the successful passage of the levy last year, which put a bright spotlight on the district, the committee advanced several initiatives aimed at continuing the favorable perceptions around the spirit of success. Most notable was the launch of Kicking It with Columbus City Schools, a monthly one-hour radio program on our own WCBE 90.5 FM, which provided a platform for high school students to share what made them most proud of their schools. The voices on this show are all students. They come up with the topics and provide their own personal stories. And in the recording studio at Fort Hays, students are at the controls. As part of the 2016-2017 school year, more than a dozen of our high schools were able to participate in the first go-round of recordings. Over the summer, we aired a special show that featured student music performances and several TEDx-style student presentations. We have already begun planning for this year's series of recordings. We will start recording later this month with the first shows for this new season set to air starting in January. The Public Engagement Committee also championed the annual Columbus City School Children's Day celebrations. Despite a day of rain in May, we still had several families visit our schools at Centennial, Fort Hays, Walnut Ridge, Marion Franklin, Columbus Global Academy, and West. Planning for next spring's event is still in works, but I'm happy to share that Nationwide Children's Hospital has signed on to be our first ever sponsor of the event, committing to help us with programming and outreach. Next, our Spirit of Success announcements at City League football games. You might recall that the Community Engagement Committee last year started a trend of asking announcers at our home football games to share Spirit of Success updates. such as the growing number of graduates or the record amounts of scholarships. This fall, we took it a step further. At a series of football games, we offered visitors a free box of popcorn or other concession items if they could show they had the CCS app on their phone. The app promotion really worked well, with more than 1,200 new downloads. Finally, the committee is working with Principal Dr. Milton Ruffin and the Construction Arts Career Tech team to launch Light Up the Night. Students who are enrolled in the Career Center's electrical program will employ the electrical skills they have learned to assist local residents who need a working porch or garage light. We're working with local organizations and faith-based leaders in the Milo Grogan and King Lincoln neighborhoods to sign up residents who need assistance. Through a donation of light bulbs from AEP Ohio, the students will change out the non-working light bulbs in these areas free of charge. Depending on the success of the Light Up the Night effort this month, we will look to expand the outreach to other neighborhoods in the spring. So again, I want to thank the members of the Public Engagement Committee and the staff who have worked hard on these projects. And here's a reminder, if you haven't downloaded the new Columbus City Schools mobile app yet, do it now. All you have to do is go to the App Store on your phone or tablet and then search Columbus City Schools. It's free and it's a valuable resource for engaging our families in our community. Also, to hear about all the great things happening in Columbus City Schools. That is my report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are there any questions for Chair Reyes on the Public Engagement Committee report? Thank you very much. Thank you for your service on that committee as chair. The next committee list here is NSDP, Neighborhood School Development Partnership, and I'll briefly read through that committee report. So below are highlights of the work of the NSDP Board Subcommittee for calendar year 2017, and I'll read through these briefly. In February, we had presentations including topics of Operation Fix-It, Issue 57, Professional Design Services, Phase 1 Roof Assessment and Replacement Project, and Phase 1 HVAC Overhaul Project. Looked ahead to HVAC pilot projects at Cassidy Alternative Elementary, Hamilton STEM Elementary, and Devonshire Elementary. Facility Master Plan, look ahead and considerations, high school academic programming, and FMP decisions, and real estate update, disposals and acquisitions. This doesn't sound very exciting as I read through it, but it actually is. If you've never attended it, we actually have a good time, and we have a number of experts that are members of this committee that really have benefited the district over the years. In March, we had presentations including again, Operation Fix-It, and talking about how we're proceeding on issue 57, the bond issue, looking ahead to professional design services, fire alarm replacement, plumbing repairs, and a real estate overview. We also contemplated change orders, as we do at most meetings of NSDP. In April, we had presentations including topics of potential revisions to our charter, as well as the FMP process. In October, we talked about the State of the Facilities report and our continued efforts to revise the NSDP charter, recommended change orders, and in December, wraps up the year with an update on disposal of surplus real estate, Operation Fix-It, an update on the Issue 57 bond issue projects, design build contract for more HVAC renovations, and professional design services for fire alarm projects, additional discussion of subcommittee organization and charter revisions. So I just want to thank everyone who has served on NSDP. It's been an incredibly valuable committee to this board over the years and has helped to bring in expert community input on all of our FMP projects. And can't thank those committee members enough. Are there any questions on NSDP? I'd like to thank Board Member Gibbs for serving with me on that committee. Eric Brown has also served. Alex Trevino staffs the committee, and Curtis Williams chairs the committee. So thank you very much to all of them for participating. Let's move on then to Finance and Appropriations, and I'm going to call on Chairman Dominic Peretti to give us a report.
Well, it doesn't get any more exciting than Finance and Appropriations, people. You know, this year was the first year that thank you, Stan, that I had the opportunity to take the board lead on finance. And real quick, I just want to thank Stan and Scott and all of our team for really continuing to build this process. and our annual budgeting process, that we continue to evolve and make better and make sure that we're being accountable and transparent to the public. This year, actually, we welcomed 2 new members, Jordan Miller from Fifth Third Bank and Jeff Jordan from the Ohio High School Athletic Association, and they've replaced some outgoing members, Tim Robinson and Reggie Johnson. We have monthly meetings. Every month we have meetings, and usually the meeting focuses on our monthly financials. But on top of that, we do go over some annual budgeting processes as we kind of go through that process every year, and we also take up additional items, which I'll get into briefly. So we start in January, and that's sort of when we start a budget preparation calendar. This year we went over our Moody's bond rating, sale of bonds, part of our $125 million Operation Fix-It bond issue. In March, we went into our departmental budget presentations, which then led to our personnel budget update. And at the same time, we were also looking at our 5-year forecast. Going into June, we do our appropriations resolution, and then we take a break in July, just like a lot of other activities. In August, update to preparation of our 5-year forecast, because we do 2 of those a year, one in October and one in May. So we start to prepare for that. And we also started the process this year for an opportunity study for our treasurer's office and another update to our Fitch bond rating. Just this September, the board or the committee overheard the superintendent's search firm contract and appropriation. And then in October, our 5-year forecast presentation, and then in November, just this November, review of budget transfers for ACT administration, transportation, LEDE tracking software, as well as the City of Columbus came to our finance meeting to go over the economic incentive study presentation. We still have a month. We have a meeting coming up soon, and we're also looking ahead again. We're getting into the next year, and like I said, we are continuing to fine-tune our processes of finance, and what we are going to be looking at going into the future is sort of a facilities operating budget. What sort of things go into all of our buildings? What are the things that are similar in buildings? What are things to be careful about? Some building may, what sort of general fund dollars go to each of our buildings? What sort of capital dollars go to our buildings? How has that been overlaid by our Operation Fix-It? And things to be careful with. Building to building, you're not going to get, it's not in apples to apples comparison. You're going to have to be careful sometimes. They may have different heating system, different capacities, the size of the building, the age of the building, a lot of those things. But this is going to be another tool that I see us having to continue to examine our resources, what we want to do in the future, and how we can prepare for them. We will also be looking at our permanent improvement fund monies. That's that $500,000 that we get now that the voters were so gracious to allow us to have, and it's around $5 million that can be used for capital. And capital are those things that can be used for like textbooks and software, but also deferred maintenance. And so how do we look at this? What are we going to be doing in the future? What are some plans? And you have to be careful because, sometimes boilers break, roofs break, and, you can't be too, you can't have, it's not an exact science, but we're going to start to look at, what we should expect, what the board should expect, what the public should expect from our permanent improvement piece. And at the same time, our sale of buildings fund, what happens when these monies come in. Again, a lot of the time we can only use these dollars for capital pieces. So when we do sell a building, we hear it a lot in the community, and we had some students come in last year, if I remember, or a few months ago, that when we did sell buildings, they're like, why aren't you doing something with the classroom? It's like, well, legally we're not allowed to. But it's good to continue to educate the public. It's good for us to continue to, be good stewards of our tax dollars and make sure that, the resources that we have are adequate, and the resources that we have, that we're going to be transparent with them and to best serve our community and our students. So I look forward to continuing to work on this committee and these different pieces that continue to evolve. Come by finance. It is a really, really fun time. Stan is the best. So I just really appreciate the team. We wouldn't be able to do it if it wasn't for Stan, if it wasn't for Scott and his incredible team and the community coming together in this process. And we will be meeting next week. So mark your calendars on Thursday at 4 o'clock down here, and hope to see you all there. thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again, thanks to the Treasurer and the Budget Director for helping to staff that committee. You all are doing a great job on that committee. Thank you. And let's move then on to, if there are no questions, to the Policy Review Committee, and chairing that committee is Eric Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Policy Review Committee report is going to be much shorter, and I'm not going to make any claims about it being fun.
It's a lot of fun.
We do happen to have outstanding people serving on this committee, and it's wonderful working with them, and do want to thank Eric Roush for his efforts and his good work. This is a new committee, or a revived committee, but the charter was approved just in August, and our community members were appointed. Jennifer Adair, Joellen Klein, Kelsey Ellingson, Jared Holt, Tina Pierce, and James Ragland are our community members who are very actively participating in discussions and helping us fashion good and appropriate policy as we work through it. We've also had consistent attendance and participation from Phil Hayes, and that's been helpful. We did meet twice in October. This board saw the first batch of policies that we worked through, and we did 2 readings of those, approving them toward the end of November. We are scheduled to meet this coming Friday morning at 8:30 in the morning, and then again the 29th of December. And we're going to continue to work through the backlog and address new policy needs as they arise. And right now, there's still a fair amount of backlog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to congratulate you on an impressive start. You started meeting in October. You brought us legislation in November that was approved, and it was well done. So you're off to a good start. Thank you very much. Any questions for the committee chairman? Thank you very much. Let's move on then to innovation and reform, and I'll ask Chair Gibbs.
Sure, thank you. How do we start this? Thank you, President Baker. We've had the fortunate opportunity to have a very in-depth report about our work, I believe, at the last meeting with Ms. Cherie Wells, as we brought the entire board up to speed. But definitely wanted to point out just a few things about the committee and the continual work to make sure we are bringing the most innovative and updated out of the box, or maybe just opening an old box, bringing the best practices to the board for us to consider. As you know, the mission of innovation and reform is to have a two-way dialogue between us and the community, to pull together the emerging trends that we see in other districts, in other like districts from our Council of Great City Schools partners, as well as other districts here in the state of Ohio and across the nation, to leverage our partnerships in those organizations, as well as look at ideas and really work them out and think about the feasibility of implementation here in Columbus City Schools. You know how these ideas come to life. People bring them to us. We get them via the internet. We get them via the grocery store. We get them via members at the meeting. We talk about them. We put them up. We dissect them. And if they have merit, or if there is something that is more appropriate for the administration to do, we pass it on to them. Otherwise, we look at how well it fits, and we ultimately provide recommendations to the Board of Education for your consideration. So every idea that we entertain either goes to the administration or it comes to the board. Oh, y'all fancy, huh? We do have a good time on our committee. Our committee is made up of numerous committee members, where we have many of our community stakeholders at the table, as well as not just Dr. Good, but under the the leadership, thank you, of Dr. John Stanford, and we've been blessed to have Miss Cherie Wells this year to help lead our work in the high school area. And we also have Miss Alicia Gillison and the Chief Academic Officer, and many of our high-level staff in specialty areas, so that when we're talking about special ed, or if we're talking about health or accountability, Dr. Klein is in the room, and sometimes we call Kate King to come into the room. We call our internal experts so that our community partners have firsthand information in what we do. We thank you, Ms. Tracy Johnson and Lois Carson, and Phil Hayes and Andre Washington for making sure those voices are at the table as well. And our alumni and Mr. Ari Toes. So we've had a lot of work. So our school year it crosses 2 school calendar years. So we tackled safety. We tackled our specialty parent survey. You heard a lot about that earlier in the year. But on our plate was restorative justice and looking at the continuation of our work with Chair Peretti on the facilities master plan. And as you know, we spent a lot of work updating that plan on what the outside building should look like and where it should go. But we took the task this year to say what actually goes in it. What will be the programs? What will be the innovative ideas that will make you excited that we're going to possibly close your building? But if we take away this, we're going to give you that. And we're trying to figure out what that is. And so under the leadership of Ms. Cherie Wells, we've really tackled a lot in high school design, not just theme-based schools, but we spent a lot of work, as you know, in the portfolio of the graduate. But what you will hear about in the next few weeks are some of our site visits and what we've learned from visiting other schools. We took a trip to Pittsburgh with the Bread organization, and through that organization, and it was them, they put the trip together to study restorative practices. And we were able to go along with some of our labor partners, and I visited Pittsburgh Brashear. Miss Marcy Draft was in my group, and we visited their restorative practices and how they integrated not just in the discipline, but in French class, in dance class, and art class, how they make that work. And that was a very informative visit. We ended up at Pittsburgh Langley, K-8, where we did a wrap-up and we toured their schools. They also have a boxing ring and gymnasium, am I right? President Baker took on Vice President Cole in the ring. I'm not going to tell you one. They have a swimming pool in that school building. They have an extensive courtyard. They have just a tremendous amount, Mr. Peretti, of facilities that wrap around their program. So that was very good. But we also know that there are great practices right here. So last week, we took a tour to Central Crossing High School and Olentangy Orange High School. We were joined by President Baker, Mr. Kevin Freeman, Dr. Michelle Klein, Marion Meadows of I Know I Can, Ashley Bleasley of the district, Mr. Ari Toles from The Ohio State University, Tim Wangler, Mabel White from Impact Community Action, Lois Carson, Sean Carter from Franklin County Children's Services, Board Member Michael Kolb, Cassandra Fletcher from Impact Community Action, Tristan Hall from Ohio Health, Ms. Kathy Leffler in Special Ed, Kim Smith Miller from the Ohio School Boards Association, Ms. Greta Robertson, Alan Ware from Get Creative, and Ms. Cherie Wells. And we want to thank Mr. Odom and his staff for helping us coordinate our tour and taking us from the downtown high school. We went to visit Central Crossing and Olentangy Orange, and we ended up at the Otterbein, the Point at Otterbein, which is a new innovative center where they house their Department of Engineering, and it's a business incubator and like a think tank incubator. It is in phase 2, but when they are done, it is going to be amazing. It is open for summer camp. We will bring more to you about that, but President Kathy Crandall joined us for an entire visit, and really took us on tours and helped us understand how they're going to open that up to high school students from across the city. And so that was a tremendous amount of work. So we really do thank you, and really thank the work of the committee to talk about what does the next generation of high schools look like. We've heard from 50 community members, as you know, but everything from a Google school to a logistics school, an extension on gifted. NASCAR school did make the list. I just want you to know, a NASCAR school. Coding, and where would we go with a coding program? And looking at merged conversations about informal education, personalized learning, and mastery education, and how we integrate that into our district. So those pictures are from Langley and from our presentation. So we ask you every year, what's your idea? Let us know. Visit us on our website, ccsoh.columbus.k12.us.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Are there any questions for Chair Gibbs on her Innovation and Reform Committee report? Thank you very much. I've been fortunate to attend many of those meetings, and fascinating, and a lot of good work done by the committee members and staff. So thank you to those of you who are here this evening. Let's move on then to the Audit and Accountability Committee, and because Board Member Hudson is not here, the Vice President has agreed to read through this committee report.
Thank you. I just wish I had gone before this amazing video presentation, the whole bells and whistle. Okay. The Audit and Accountability Committee, as always, does an outstanding job annually having discussion about risk management here in Columbus City Schools. I'm always amazed at every meeting I attend on the corrective action, the level of reporting that we get from the administration and from Internal Auditor Smith on what her work has been and what her reporting has been with regards to monitoring our internal health as an organization. And I'm very proud to say that I think that we're in a good space. We are not in a perfect space, but we are in a very good space as an organization. With that, the purpose and charge of the committee is that the board shall assist the Board of Education shall assist the board in fulfilling its responsibility to provide oversight and governance with regard to the following: the integrity of financial statements and other financial information reported by the district to its stakeholders, the district's system of internal controls of the accounting and finance functions, the district's operational compliance with legal and regulatory requirements, the effectiveness of the district's code of conduct and the whistleblower hotline, the performance of the annual independent audit of the district's financial statements, and the performance of the district's Office of Internal Audit. There were several different actions that were taken this year, but largely the committee heard report summaries over 7 audits, including IT, use and control of facilities, and various internal controls of a process within the school buildings. All reports and recommendations were vetted by the committee and ultimately voted for release to the board. The committee met periodically with auditors from the State Auditor's Office and also performed their charter responsibilities by vetting the report before final issuance and publication. I'm excited to see that on several different occasions, we got a pretty good, clean bill of health, if you will, from the Auditor of State. And that is not just due to this committee and its work, but also, again, due to the work in corrective action on the part of our administrators, who, from everything from curriculum to IT to other operations aspects of our organization, have been doing a stellar job in trying to keep us on the right track. Risk management and OIA work plan, the committee provided valuable feedback to the internal auditor and district administration during the annual risk assessment process. Members suggested cutting-edge adjustments to the process, which will be part of the risk assessment in future years. During the August meeting of the committee, they reviewed and recommended the OIA work plan be adopted by the board. There were other actions taken, but without going too farther on, they've done an outstanding job, and I just want to make sure that I cite our committee members and that of Board Member Eric Brown, Mr. Tim Grant, Gregory Jordan, and Dr. Charles Saunders. I definitely want to thank them for their insights and hard work on this committee, and of course the leadership of Board Member Hudson. That concludes that committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And like NSDP, audit and accountability was a levy bond issue promise from a number of years ago. And so those committees are promises kept to the community by this board. And we really do have and can be proud of the world-class internal audit shop that we run here in Columbus City Schools. And it stands up very well to its peers in the Council of Great City Schools. And in fact, our own internal auditor was part of developing a report from the council that was released by its board earlier this year that pointed to the fact that we are doing very well among our peers and can be proud. So thank you, Madam Internal Auditor. And thanks to those of you who serve on the committee. All right, next is Board External Monitoring Committee, and I'd like to ask the Vice President to report on that committee.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Again, very quickly, I wanted to definitely commend the all-year work, all year-round work of our committee members, Dr. Rita Bover, who's actually joining us right now, Mr. Tom Dillard, Mr. Ricardo Felix, Dr. Rodney Harrelson, who's also in the audience here, Mr. Isaac Norman, who was actually replaced by Mr. Felix because Mr. Norman went on to college to do extraordinary things as a track star, business entrepreneur, and any number of things you can think of as a student at The Ohio State University and graduate of East. Mr. Emmanuel Remy and also Ms. Michelle Upshaw. Now, the committee's draft and purpose charge is the following, and I'll just borrow from the last portion of it because that's the part that's most relevant to why we have them working with us. In order to increase transparent public awareness and accountability for the board's role and performance, the board formed the BEMC, Board External Monitoring Committee, as an advisory body to assist and facilitate the board's work to efficiently and effectively govern the district, again, to advise our work. The BMC will assist and facilitate the board's work by monitoring, assessing, reporting, and advising on the board's governance performance. They're doing this to watch us, observe us, and then provide their annual assessment of what they believe our performance has been. As an advisory committee, the BEMC shall not take action on behalf of the board. So I always want to make sure that I'm very clear in stating that because we had a very in-depth and spirited conversation around what they thought, what the board, what my colleagues here felt like the spirit of our work is and what it should be, what they'd like to imagine or reimagine it being. But provided that this committee works with a rubric that is designed to assess us in 10 different categories. Each category allows up to 10 points per meeting. So 10 categories, 10 points per meeting. There are 2 meetings a month. We have had 16 observations over this past year that were provided for us. The summary of the committee members' evaluation of the 2017 board meetings are attached to okay. As the committee reports, the board achieved in 2017 an average score of 9.3 out of 10-point scale for the 10 questions of the rubric and an average total overall score of 93.1 out of 100 points. I'm excited to say that we have gotten an A-. Now, the beauty of this is not only that we've gotten an A, but we've actually increased in our performance. Last year, in 2016, we received an 85%. We received an 85%. Now we've seen a 8-point jump in perception of our performance by very skill-minded and active community leaders who came on their personal time to watch us do our work and give us their assessment. So I definitely want to make sure, again, I acknowledge the committee. All of the additional information is on board. Moving forward, though, with this committee, I want to ensure that as it's been a tough year, a lot of us are sitting on any number of committees and doing a lot of traveling, and of course you have your personal life and work. But I want to ensure that moving forward, we try to work towards getting our reports out even more. You get the opportunity to see a real live report after each board meeting, so members can have those emailed out. We made that practice at the beginning of my tenure on this committee, but I want to make sure that we continue moving that forward. I thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any questions for the Vice President on BEMC? All right, I just want to thank you. Board Member Gibbs.
Thank you. I really do want to thank you for your work, and I want to thank the committee that comes out to work on external monitoring. It may seem that doesn't mean much, but there was a time where we got Fs. This is a much different board than when I started 11 years ago, and it's a much different iteration. Despite sometimes not agreeing on policy, this is a great board to work with. And the decorum that we strive to maintain, and the work that we try to get done, and focusing not just on just the works or the task of the day, but really on student achievement, is an incredible, I think, improvement from some yesteryears. And so I think the work in that grade is nothing to take lightly when you need to really have serious-minded people at the table to tackle serious and tough problems when it comes to educating today's youth. So really thank you for the rubric and the work that went into making it a grade that means something. So thank you, and thank you for everyone who sit here, and they don't just watch, like they have to watch and grade us. And so we really do thank them for that.
Thank you, Board Member Gibbs. And yes, I was pleased to see that we went from a strong B last year to an A-. So keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Mr. Cole. And Dr. Bova, thank you for being here this evening to monitor us. All right, I do believe that may be the last committee report, unless I have missed one. Thank you very much. Most of the work of the board happens in committee, and I want to thank you all for your leadership, and all of those of you who participate in those committees in any way. Thank you very much for your participation. It helps to make us a better board. And then let's move on to announcements, other announcements. So there's an important one coming up on December 12th. That's our CCS Story of Success at Fort Hays at the Shot Tower from 4 to 7. And so if you plan to attend, please do RSVP on our website. It's an open house in the Shot Tower. It's going to feature stories of success from our students, staff, leadership, families, and community partners. Drop in to share your story, either in writing or on video, and we'll add your message to a special public recognition for Dr. Good. And one other thing I wanted to mention is the Family Literacy and Numeracy Academy that's coming up on Saturday, actually. And Mr. Superintendent, would you like to mention that or ask staff to come up and talk?
Thank you, President Baker, members of the board. I'm going to ask Leslie Kelly to come forward. And is that all right, Sandy? I think you did it last time. So, and I brought a sneak preview.
You brought the book. Thank you, President Baker. This Saturday is our fifth anniversary of our Family Literacy Numeracy Academy. And as Dr. Good shared, the theme is same, but different, where we are recognizing our similarities and celebrating our differences through sharing our stories. We're very excited about that. It is again this Saturday at COSI. Doors open at 8:45. The event concludes at 1 p.m. The new parking facility is complete, and it is beautiful. So there will be no weather issues. We'll be very excited. Parking is free. So parking is free and admission is free for the entire day. So although our event closes at 1, families are free to stay for the entire day. There will be over 30 doing stations where families will engage in literacy and numeracy activities and then receive resources to take home to continue the learning. We are looking forward to, we already have over 100 families that have registered online with 3 to 10 people in each party. So that's pretty fantastic. Going in, the bulk of our families just show up that day. So please get the word out, and we look forward to seeing everybody on Saturday.
Thank you very much. And I know I'll be there. I think I'm going to say a few opening comments. Okay, very good. I'll look forward to that.
Dr. Good is actually going to be reading that book right there that he shared. President Baker will also be speaking, as well as Zuka Moomin from Vice President of COSI. And then we have one of our choirs will be singing a special song as well.
Very good. Thank you very much. I'll see you there. Hope to see you all there. Mr. Superintendent?
So Saturday is quite the eventful day. Our drivers, bus drivers, have sponsored a Stuff the Bus event over the past month, and so they've collected wrapped toys or unwrapped new toys, and they will all meet at the, I don't remember the name of the center up by NBC4, but we eat McDonald's together, and then we jump on the bus, and Santa comes down one of the wheelchair lifts and helps to deliver those toys, and it's always a wonderful event. It's a way that, again, the other educators we don't always think of as being on the front line are helping to support our mission. So that occurs Saturday as well. Very exciting.
Very good. Thank you. Any other announcements? Board Member Gibbs?
Dr. Good, could you speak to the construction trades event that we have coming up on December 7th?
I'm going to ask David Baker to.
Good evening. Yes. Or maybe I won't. Good evening. This has been Ian Cleary has been putting together with the city, and it's going to be a great opportunity for a lot of our construction trades associations to come to Fort Hays, opportunity for our community to mingle with them. A lot of our students will be able to meet with them, especially those students who are involved in those programs, and find out kind of what those work habits and academic skills that they're going to need necessary to go into those various fields, and get to speak with those people individually and learn more from the people directly in the field.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
I just wanted to say I've had several good opportunities to spend time with brothers and sisters in labor in the last few weeks, and I can tell you they are excited about this. They really are. From the sheet metal workers and the plumbers and the carpenters, they look forward to this. So, yeah.
All right. Ms. Gibbs?
Yeah, just a few things. I was remiss in thanking Mr. Joe Brown and our food service team for supplying breakfast for our trip, and the downtown high school for hosting us under the leadership of Ms. Cheryl Watson. So I want to thank everybody in the audience who was a part of that. Secondly, last Saturday was very busy. I Know I Can hosted Blueprint College at OSU. They had 218 attendees, 97 students, and they represented 19 high schools. And as you know I Can is one of our longstanding partners to help students not just go to college, but to persist and to graduate. And so Blueprint College is an amazing opportunity for parents to come and learn how not to rack up debt. How do you apply for college? How do you find those scholarships? Get your FAFSA done and make sure that you are able to get all the resources and the knowledge. You do not need to wait till January to file your FAFSA for all of our high school seniors. You can do it off of last year's taxes, and you can get it done now. So for all of our students that are getting ready to graduate, senioritis does not start until May. So let's get on it. Let's shake it and really thank those type of community partners and those that stay with us year round to help our students succeed. So we really do thank them for all of their work.
Thank you, Board Member Gibbs. Any other announcements or comments from board members? If not, I'll ask the Vice President to offer a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is recommended that the board recess into executive session per section Action 121.22 G1 Ohio Revised Code to consider the employment or compensation of public employees or officials.
Second.
Mr. Treasurer? Thank you.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Peretti? Yes. Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. The board will now recess into executive session. We'll adjourn from those chambers without returning to these. Have a good evening. Thank you for being here.